Hi, everyone. I'm Mike Maggin. I'm the Senior Reference Librarian at the Monroe Free Library. And today I'm going to take you guys on a journey through Google Earth and how you can use it for your programming. Okay, Google Earth. So by a show of hands, how many of you guys have ever used Google Earth just in general? Okay, so like a lot of people. How many of you have used it in your library? Okay, so not as many people. Right, I get you. I was that person until I started using it. Um, Google Earth isn't new technology, obviously. It's actually been around since 2001, and basic use is giant map of the world. You can see different places and street views, all sorts of really cool stuff. And my favorite thing about it is it's free. It doesn't cost you anything, it doesn't cost your patrons anything. And I love to tell my patrons all the time, they can do this at home and they don't even need me to help them with it, to facilitate the programs. Okay, so how did our library start using Google Earth? Well, our library likes to do series programming. We're on a third year of series programming. We actually presented here a couple years ago about our series programming. Last year we did Around the World with Monroe Free Library. And this was a 6-month series where we did 7 continents. I know you're thinking in your head 6 and 7, that doesn't add up. We combined Antarctica and Australia. It was crazy. I loved it. Loved every minute of it. Um, and we were doing programs on culture and music and art. And I thought to myself, like, we're missing a piece, right? Something we need to get more to our patrons about this. And I recently returned from a language learning conference. My wife is a language professor, and I get to go with her to all these fun places, which is nice. And I sat in a presentation about Google Earth and how they use it for language. And I kept thinking to myself, how can I bring this to the library? Then Around the World came and that little light bulb came on. Oh, yep, this is exactly how I can do it. So what I immediately noticed as soon as I started doing the programs, and we'll get more into the program itself in a little bit, was that people were really excited. Our first program had 7 people. Now, for us, we don't have a big space for programming, so 7 is a pretty good number for us, especially for a new type of program, in a new series of programs. And I think it was in March, which is a little tougher time for programming. And from there, they kept asking me for more and more of them. Oh, sorry about that. So I had to start thinking. Now that once Around the World ended, I didn't want Google Earth to end. I said, people are loving this. So our first one had 7, then we had 9, 11, et cetera, et cetera. It started to go up, and they kept saying, what are you going to do when this is over? And I said, oh, I didn't think of that. So I sat down and, like any good librarian, and made a list of like all of these things that possibly I could do with Google Earth. And on the other hand, I also had this other crazy idea that I'd been floating in my head for a few years now. How could I do a ghost tour at the library? And I said, oh, I don't really want to try to take patrons all around town because there's, issues of people being able to walk. And also, I'm not as familiar with the paranormal in our specific area. And then again, that light bulb popped in. And I said, oh, October is coming, Halloween, ghost tour library, Google Earth. There we go. So I started to compile a list. Again, my list, I like a lot of lists, of haunted places that I knew about. And I made it probably about 15 places on my list originally. Then I went to Google Earth to see what I could see and what I couldn't see, because there are some places you just can't see. They won't allow you to. For example, Amityville Horror House, right on my list. Easy. Nope. Blacked out on Google Earth. Unfortunately, you can't see it because they don't want people going to the house and being there. So I got creative, and it wasn't just New York. The world was my playground now. I could go anywhere. I stayed in the United States though, but you could go almost anywhere. And then I had to find a ghost story that would match it. So I found ghost stories from books, whether it was from our library or I probably interlibrary loaned some of them. Night of the program, I was able to get some orange lights from the children's department, turned off the lights, put those little lights on, read the ghost story, showed people the places, and there we had our ghost tour via Google Earth. And I was like, okay, great. Now what I do? I've done that idea. The Oscars were coming up, and I said, wouldn't it be fun to like show people places where movies were filmed? And I didn't want to do places like Central Park where lots of movies are filmed. We've all seen that, right? I thought to myself, let's be a little more niche. Let's find some popular movies and some of the actual places that they are. So as you can see at the top of the screen, I have the Ghostbuster house from the movie Ghostbusters, a firehouse that actually exists. And for this movie, I also wanted to make sure that if people hadn't seen the movie, they'd still be able to come and enjoy. So what I did was I used YouTube and found small clips of that exact scene in the movie where the location was, played that first so people would see that and they would get it. Actually, my favorite part of the program was I showed the Philadelphia Art Museum where Rocky runs up the steps, And, we played the whole scene where he runs. And then when we used the Google Earth to walk up the steps, we played the music again so everybody could feel like they were part of it. And they all were really excited about it. It was, I gotta be honest, that idea was my wife's idea. She was like, play the music while you do that. I was like, all right, I'll do it. It's fine. So as you can see, we've done all sorts of things, and I'll get to my future Google Earths coming up in just a minute here. But what does the program look like, right? I've talked about this, right? How can you do it now at your library? Well, Google Earth obviously should be the star of the show. And at the very end, I'll show you guys Google Earth and what it really looks like. It's hard to switch back and forth right now. So I like to always say that every star should have its supporting cast, right? So our supporting cast for me is YouTube, it's PowerPoint, it's sometimes photos or websites from the different sites that you're going to, because a lot of like places like museums and stuff have great videos of their collection on there that you can use for free. And you just put them into your PowerPoint and there you go. You can play for the people after they've seen the place. So, that little bit of adding, they're not just seeing the place, now they're seeing a video of the place. Also, YouTube has great drone videos of a lot of places and 4K videos. So there's all sorts of really great stuff you can pull out. Keep it under 3 minutes because after that you lose them. They're no longer interested in what you're saying. I know I've made that mistake before. Also, you might see food at the bottom there because who doesn't love a program with food, right? So I like to pair it with what I like to call a souvenir, because you don't go on a trip and you don't get to buy something, right? You got to have a nice little souvenir at the end. It started when we did my first one, which was Google Earth Europe, and one of the countries I did was Belgium, and one of our local chocolatiers had Belgian chocolate, and I was like, oh, this is great. Not thinking I'm gonna have to do this for everyone, and African candy is not just available on any street corner, you know what I mean? So I managed to find some, but as you can see for movies, I used popcorn. I just had a big thing of popcorn, and Halloween was easy. Halloween candy, done. But now it's like a staple that I have to continue to. Violet Crumble is also what I use for Australia, by the way. I actually found that at a supermarket, and I was pumped because it made it much easier. But yeah, you can also use any presentation you like to do. You don't need to use PowerPoint, anything you want. Every patron is different. Every library is different. So yours is going to look different than mine. Okay, so order of operations, right? So how do I go about doing this? First thing you want is a theme. Don't just try to pick random places in the world and put them together, because you need something that flows and you need something that gets people excited. So if they like movies, they're going to want to go to see movie places. If they like, haunted places, they're going to see that. So then you want your places to go facts and or clips about it. Make a longer list than you're going to use, because 9 times out of 10, you're going to be like, oh, halfway through this is not that interesting. This place is not as interesting as I thought it would be on Google Earth. Maybe in real life it's really cool, but it doesn't show well on there. So I like to keep my list long and then just cut. Even after I've made my map, I like to cut some places. As I said, presentation method. How are you presenting it? Are you using PowerPoint? Are you using Google Slides? Is it a Zoom presentation where you're sharing your screen? Because that's also an option that you can do for this. And a takeaway or a souvenir. Now, for those who may not have a bigger budget and you don't want to have to buy, and you may have 50 pages, ours 7 is pretty good for us, but you're 50, you might not want to buy that. So I like to call your takeaway can also be like knowledge or some fun facts that they learned about it, and maybe question them on that in the end too, because we also take that out of our trips when we go places. But like I said, it's going to be different for everybody, and your way of doing it is totally cool. So let's take a little bit of look at one of what I do. And like I said, again, we're going to dive into actual Google Earth at the end. On the left here, you'll see what I have is a list of places. Google Earth allows you to put pins down on places so that you'll remember how to get back there at some point. And I'll show you what the next screen will show you what it looks like when you're trying to fly to each of those places. But this is the actual map view of Antarctica. So when we did our Antarctica one, and this is what they call a street view of a place in actual Antarctica. Actually, one fun thing I learned about this was that people actually live in Antarctica. I had no idea. I was completely unaware about Antarctica at all. Also with the pins, you can change the color and make a title for each of the pins so that you can keep track. For me, I use the blue for just anything, and the red are for little pins I want to place near the little dots that I want to actually show people the street views of. Like I said, again, whatever you find best for you. I found that worked. This was a longer one, but my Ghost Stories one only ended up as 5 places because I had to read the stories. So there's really no rhyme or reason to how many you want to do. Our programs are like an hour, so I try to keep it at that. Sometimes a little more, sometimes a little less. Always leave time for candy, that's important. Here you see on your left again, your right, it's on your right, sorry, it's on my left. You'll see the list of places. Now there's an option here that says, you see where edit, copy, fly to? So when you want to do your trip, you would hit the fly to, and it looks like you're flying over to the area and you get these nice little views of stuff. And you can do that for all of your places, and that's kind of how I do it. At the bottom here, you'll see what's on Google Earth, it's always on the bottom right, but it has the little guy down there. That'll show you your street views. That'll show you where you can click to get a better view. Next to that, I don't usually use that one, but the 3D one is one of my favorites because you see a 3D view. It's a nice topography, and it almost gives you like a little flyover of it. And it's kind of, people really love that part. They're like, ooh, I always get the oohs and ahs when I show that part. The little, can you see my mouse? Okay, there we go. This one is for tilting your Earth. So if you want to show it from a different perspective, this, how we look at the Earth is different. We're very North American centric, but this will flip it around for you. And obviously I zoom in and out because, you always have to zoom in and out of things all the time. This is an example of a PowerPoint slide I'll usually use when I'm talking about a place to let people know before we travel to the place. Sometimes I like to preview it a little bit. So if you're going to Morocco, here's a map of Morocco, because some people are much more familiar with a map view than they are with the globe view as it looks. So they like to get that kind of idea. Okay, I'm near Algeria, near Spain, etc. The colorful photos, always nice to show people where they're going beforehand. I think of it as like this little travel brochure of where we're going. So a couple of future ideas we have for Google Earth. I want to do something on baseball stadiums. Google Earth provides you the ability to see inside baseball stadiums, which is kind of cool. Pair that with facts about the team, etc. But the bottom picture is where we are now because you always got to start somewhere, right? So we're starting here. Another idea we have is roadside attractions, because who doesn't love world's largest chair? Come on. But I don't want to actually go there. I'd rather see it on Google Earth. Up here we have Mighty Joe the gorilla. I believe he's at a gas station, and you can, see him there. Also, pairing it with other things, our garden club. I'm the head of the garden club is actually my boss. We work together, and I'm doing a Google Earth gardens of the world for her, so that people can see the gardens, walk through them without actually having to leave our library, because you can't get to other countries that easily. So yeah, real quick, I want to jump into Google Earth a little bit here. So this is what your main Google Earth screen would look like. I'm just going to search our library real quick because that's the easiest place. And you can see how it works really quickly. I mean, obviously you've all used it, so you have some idea. But normally what you can do is I like to start at our library always, and then I'll usually go to an airport and tell people like, oh, you're going on a trip. What do you need? You're going to Antarctica. What are we getting, guys? We can't just go. Around the World was nice because I got to do a continuation each time. So we ended up at the airport from the previous place we were at. So that was a lot of fun. If you look at the 3D, you can see obviously the map changes. And like I said, almost like a flyover, like you're on the airplane and you can see the little stuff. Little guy here will show us where we can go. I believe it's Halloween time in our library when you look at it, because there's like the Halloween decorations on the thing here. But as you can see, like I said, you can walk down streets. And what I like to do at this time is usually tell them a little bit facts about the place, discuss it with them, who's been to these places before. And then, then you can just use your search bar to do it. So does anybody have any ideas as to what they would maybe do with this for their library? Obviously you just had a small amount of time to think about it, but yes.
We're going to do something next year on revolutionary sites in Rockland.
That's great.
Part of that is going to be using Google Maps to create a pin.
Yeah, I think it's really, history should be like seen as well as heard about. And I had a history teacher tell me that, and I didn't understand it until I started to see historical sites, and then I really got it. But I think, like I said, it's free, and your patrons will like that. They can do it at home. They don't have to they're always so afraid to, and I'm like, no, you can do it on your phone. You can do it anywhere. I have it on my phone right now. All my projects are saved on there. So what's nice, by the way, is you can save a project on there. If you have a Google Drive account, you can save it on there. That's how I do it. And I do all the fly twos that way. So any questions? Yes.
That was actually thinking that was going to be my question too. You can log in with a Drive account, like preload.
Yeah, I have a bunch. Yeah, that's how you do it. And then you would just log into if I was logging into this computer, I could show you more. I have a bunch of them, and you can always go back to your project, add more to it, get rid of it, and that's how you do the fly twos with that part of it. Yeah. Yes.
Do you do your programs only in person, or do you have like a remote
on? So our library has not found a lot of success with Zoom programs in general. We just haven't. I have thought about how I could do this via Zoom with if I share a screen and I show them, it's the same concept. I'm still talking to them, they can still see it because I'm sharing the screen. That would probably actually give them a chance to also go into Google Earth and look at it, which would be kind of fun. It's something I'm thinking about through this presentation. It started to make me think more about other ways I can present the program. So, but our possibilities are really endless. I keep coming up with more ideas in my head of different places. My boss was yesterday was like beaches of the world. I'm like, that would be really fun. So that's it. Anybody else have any other questions? Yes.
Seems to be geared towards adults, like I'm a kid librarian, and actually next month you're gonna do like travel the world with picture books. I don't know if that's something.
I mean, you could probably like still show them where this takes place, right? So it takes place in this country. This country is still here. So they have an idea as to that. I do adult programming. So I focus a lot of that, but I think a lot of things can be adjusted for age range depending on what you use it for. Like I said, Google Earth has so many things on it that I'm sure you could find something like maybe if it's about like say France and they're having a croissant, maybe a bakery that sells them like in France that they could actually see something like that. I have no idea what you guys are doing clearly, but it's just an example. Anybody else? All right. Well, then, happy travels, see where it takes you.